Don't bury the lead. We recap WWE Smackdown every Friday night after the bell. Today, we're doing a special episode because we're not live after the bell, but we're here on Sunday. And I am joined by Dom Scarcella. Dom, go ahead and tell the people about yourself.
I look a little different today. I thought I'd bring out a little bit from my own past in indie pro wrestling. This is the Doc Lester Brown blazer that I am wearing today because yesterday Doc Lester got to judge a burger contest. So I am fresh off of consuming far too much burger meat and at the same time not enough burger meat. It was that good. But let's see if SmackDown was as good as the burgers that I ate yesterday evening. Without further ado here, John, don't bury the lead. What's our top story from WWE SmackDown from Friday, June 9th?
Well, Dom, we don't ever want to bury the lead. We don't bury the lead. And the lead is the main event. Austin Theory retains the U.S. title against Jey Uso.
Yep.
So this was a match that was billed as a match, but had a lot of interference, a lot of crap going on, a lot of ins and outs, as the Bloodline matches have a tendency to be sometimes. So this was more like a storyline match. Instead of a promo, we kind of had a match. But ultimately, Theory retains the U.S. title. What did you think of this segment, Dom?
This was a surprise. Not only had Austin Theory not been involved in any of the Bloodline drama or in any confrontations with the Uso brothers or anybody from the Bloodline, but it wasn't at all evident to us that like Jey was going to start perhaps a singles push this episode. Everything came together within these 2 hours on Friday night. Like this was brought up and first pitched to us as audience members earlier in the show. Like this was Paul Heyman on the mic early telling us, hey, Jey, you're going to have a chance to show Roman Reigns that you're ready to be groomed as the next tribal chief. You're going to have a match with Austin Theory tonight for the U.S. Championship. And so like, that's the first we hear of it. And they have to move very quickly and build to this at the end. And you're right. This was just another vehicle for getting the Bloodline angle over. Now, may this lead to something with the Uso brothers versus Pretty Deadly? Because Pretty Deadly interferes on behalf of Austin Theory late in the match. It's a decent match, but Pretty Deadly interferes on Austin Theory's behalf, which brings out Jimmy Uso to fight off Pretty Deadly, which weirdly brings out Solo Sikoa to get in Jimmy's face. Because Solo and Paul Heyman acted like they were on Jay's side here. So first of all, if Solo's not going to come out and protect Jey when he's getting ambushed now 3-on-1, why would he stop Jimmy, who's trying to do that for Jey? And, it winds up like, I guess that means that Jimmy really is out because they'd rather sacrifice Jey than allow Jimmy to help his brother. And so, eventually Solo spikes Jimmy or tries to. Like Jey stops Solo from spiking Jimmy. And so then in the confusion there, Jimmy goes to super kick Solo. Solo ducks. Jimmy super kicks Jey. Jay's now been super kicked by a lot of people.
Right.
Like a lot of people in his family have super kicked Jey. Or speared him or something. And that allows Austin Theory to just slide in the ring and pin a fallen Jey Uso. And then post-match, Jey is kind of a loner. He refuses to patch things up with Jimmy in the ring. even though Jimmy's very apologetic also. But then, as Paul Heyman is grinning on the entrance ramp up near the door where they walk out of, Jay just kind of walks past him. So Jay's a loner now. Jimmy's a loner. Austin Theory is still the U.S. champ. Pretty Deadly has inserted themselves in a big way into the tag team mix on SmackDown. Solo Sikoa doesn't like anybody except Roman Reigns, who was not there tonight. So a lot to unpack. I don't know if you want to go more into storyline here or get more into some of the match and how Austin Theory and Jey Uso work together.
The match,
where do you
honestly, the match was so short, or their exchanges were so short. I wrote like this really wasn't really a match. Because like it was like they had some action, they went to commercial break, they had some more action, and then it's a big schmoz. So it's just like this is, instead of a promo, they have a little bit of wrestling and then like all kinds of interference from all kinds of people. One thing which is a little odd, well, I should say this: Pretty Deadly, who I've never heard of before, like 2 or 3 weeks, I guess several weeks ago, they come onto the scene. They're in the main event. They're interfering in the main event. So I'm like, these guys, they must think highly of them.
Yes.
And also, this blonde guy, he did a pretty interesting bump when he got super kicked. So I don't know if he is good in the ring, and he just has this ridiculous gimmick where it's like, I don't know what it is. Like they're fashionable. They're almost like fashionable, but they're gay, or I don't know what's going on. I don't know what the gimmick is. This isn't as bad as Karrion Kross. We'll talk about him later.
Okay.
I completely don't understand what the gimmick is, but like, yeah, they're effeminate men. I guess that's the gimmick. But yeah. So I thought ultimately they must think pretty highly about Pretty Deadly.
Yes.
And the blonde guy took a really interesting bump, so maybe he can work, and he just has a crazy comedy gimmick. But and this is just the Bloodline thing where the storyline, it continues to be pretty compelling. So I'm not even that mad at it. And usually I am mad when we have these matches and they don't finish. And I'm like, oh, another false finish. But with the Bloodline, the storyline's really good, so I'm cool with it.
Yeah, this had a ref bump, which is becoming, standard.
Yeah,
ref bumps all over. And with you, I'm agreeing that the match outcome, you're okay with the schmaz because this was such a surprise match. I mean, no one was expecting Jay to win the U.S. title, and even if he does, that's such a new wrinkle that like we would all be just starting from a blank slate almost. Jay's never won a singles title, and they brought that up at the announce table as well. I thought Austin Theory and Jey Uso worked pretty well together. Really interesting that these are almost two heels, because Theory's definitely a heel.
Yeah.
Pretty Deadly are a heel tag team. So these guys are clearly heels, but at the same time, there's still some of that heel vibe with the Bloodline, although different members are getting different reactions, which is what WWE creative wants at this point. So Jay was getting somewhat of a babyface reaction.
One thing.
So was Jimmy, sort of, right?
One thing with Jay, I noticed that during the match, he was way over with the crowd, and like he put the hand up with the finger. Like you always want the crowd interaction, so he did the finger up, and the whole crowd was into it.
Yep.
So I'm like, okay, yeah, he's doing pretty good, and that's what I wrote. Like Jay's doing pretty good here. Like he's over with the crowd. We've seen him wrestle a ton of times in the tag match, so we know he can work. And yeah, I like kind of moving forward with him as a singles guy, and also could be another guy in the mix that like, is he going to take the title from Roman?
Yeah. Great point about him playing to the crowd and getting the crowd response. On one hand, we like seeing Roman Reigns on TV. He's a great character. He's been such an epic character in this Bloodline run. On the other hand, when Roman's not on TV, it's a chance to gauge whether or not the other guys in the Bloodline are genuinely over with the audience or if it's all just rubbing off of Roman. So on a day like this, an episode like this where Roman's not there, and Jay is super over and getting a big pop as a babyface, or as an getting their tweener to babyface, maybe just like badass babyface like Stone Cold was, when he started that whole, just kind of guy who could be a heel because of the way he works and acts, but the crowd loves him.
Right.
So Jay is that now. And it's good to see Jay over when there's no Roman out there.
Mm-hmm.
There's no Sammy, although there was a vignette with Sammy earlier in the show, and Kevin Owens also there doing backstage stuff. They don't come out. They're not part of the schmoz at the end. So it's just like Jay versus Austin Theory, and Jay's over. No Roman to carry the segment. Jay's over. That's got to be really good, and that's a credit to not only the guys working and the guys who are performing and wrestling and building the characters. That's a credit to WWE creative in not just having it be the Roman Reigns show. They're trying to build up other wrestlers. That's so important. Roman's not going to be around forever. You've got to have other guys who can draw a reaction and hold people's interest, perform in the ring, perform out of the ring when Roman's not there. This is a good look for Jey Uso.
Yeah, from my perspective too, there's it feels like there's three guys that are in the title picture. It's Cody Rhodes, Sami Zayn, and now Jey Uso, with him solidly splitting away from the Bloodline. Then you're like, well, now we have some interesting, another person that could be potentially in. And he looks like a guy that I wouldn't mind being the champ either, the way that he's getting the reaction from the crowd. He's not up to where Sammy's at. I'd say it's probably Sammy's the most over with the crowd. I haven't seen Cody in a while. I don't know if he's stale and raw, or I don't know what the deal is. But I haven't seen him in a while. Maybe they're hiding him because they don't want to overexpose him. But he'd been over with the crowd up until WrestleMania. Yes. And then, maybe they can get Jay. So you have another party that could be a part of this.
Baby faces, you've talked about that. It's tough to get genuine baby faces over in the long term. Like anybody can maybe get a pop if they return. A guy's been out for a while, he's back, the crowd cheers. It's tough to get a sustained babyface character over really at the top. So you think there's maybe three of them now who we're seeing right now?
Yeah. I think those are the three guys. And I mean, Jay's probably number 3 if you're power ranking at this point, because Cody's been somewhat over, and he was it seemed like the plan was to go with him. But I'm glad they didn't. I think this is better than a Cody Rhodes run, and we'll just wait till this is stale, and then he'll pop it over.
Sure.
I think when it's completely stale and they're squeezing as much out of it as they can. And I'm always a big fan of, go home early, and you have something like this, you just take it away. And we know that was a good period there, and it was a good run, but
leave people wanting more rather than, wondering why it's not as good as it used to be.
Yeah, exactly.
That was a Jerry Seinfeld thing.
Yeah. Great comparison. Seinfeld, where they left season 9 was like meh, and the show had been fantastic, and season 9 was kind of dying on, the later seasons weren't as good. So they're like, let's pull the plug right before it's about to get real stale.
Yeah, he could have done another few seasons of that, but like just as an artist, like, no, I'd rather leave and have people saying, "Oh, we missed that show. It was so great," rather than people say like, "Oh man, that used to be awesome, but I'm glad they ended it." Like it was really getting, terrible at the end there.
That's like Seinfeld and The Simpsons are still on. Like The Simpsons were fantastic for like the first 10 seasons, but they've been on for years now, and nobody
30
watches,
something.
and it's horrible. So, and
It's getting worse. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So you don't want to go there.
you don't want to
The
like
bloodline is trying to hit that Seinfeld sweet spot.
right the
You know.
Seinfeld sweet spot where they pulled out at the right time.
Yes.
Um, so moving on here,
Yes.
a lot of different matches and segments. What did you want to jump into?
We've got a lot of Money in the Bank qualifying matches here. Those were basically the four other matches on the night. So we're on the road to Money in the Bank, which will be Saturday, July 1st in London. So we're just about 3 weeks from that. We can go to any of those. We can go to some non-match segments. Uh, what do you think was more important? Was a non-match segment more important than any of these particular matches, or do you want to go match?
Let's do a match.
Okay, what's your
Maybe
favorite of the Money in the Bank qualifiers we saw?
Santos Escobar versus Mustafa Ali.
That was the first one we saw, and may have been the longest one.
That might have been the best match of the night. I don't think we had anything that was too great this SmackDown. We had LA Knight last week versus Montez Ford, and I thought that was the best match I've seen in quite some time on SmackDown. But this SmackDown, there weren't many good matches. But this is probably the best one, and it was just okay. We have Santos Escobar going over Mustafa Ali, and this is pretty cool. Some things I liked about it, so I'll tell you. There was like a reverse Hurricane Rana.
Yes.
And when they did the reverse Hurricane Rana, I have accidentally been a part of this. So there was a botched move in NJCW when I wrestled. And when we botched the move, it was essentially a reverse Hurricane Rana. So I have in the Kensington clutch, which is we'll talk about later with the Iron Sheik, is just like the camel clutch.
Sure.
And Nick Righteous gets me up, and I'm on his shoulders.
He powers out of it by standing up eventually with you still on his shoulders.
So then what happens here is he's supposed to just drop me back, and that's the move, just like a backdrop. Sure. But he kind of like twirls me around for a while, and I'm pretty sketchy with heights. So I just kind of went back, like assuming he was going to go back with me at some point. So I went way too early.
Okay.
So I went way too early. And then when I went early, he kind of went backwards with it. And I just kind of did like a reverse Hurricane Rana. Sure. And then it was a botch and it was a mess, but it kind of looked like a reverse Hurricane Rana.
Sure.
So that's all I wanted to talk about was my reverse Hurricane Rana that I accidentally did one time.
Yes, it looked like you were legitimately freeing yourself from what could have been a deadly move.
Yeah. I guess if you start to think about realism, you're like, well, why would the guy just sit up there when he has him on the shoulders? Because he was like really hamming it up. He was like trying to like take me all around and all this stuff. So I just went back, assuming we were going to go back. But anyways, it was my bad. I botched it. I needed to just hang up there. But hey, it ended up looking half decent.
It ended up looking good. And Santos Escobar does it, and he and Mustafa Ali, they do it on purpose. It is supposed to be the Hurricane Rana. So it's, the Hurricane Rana, it was kind of started, I heard, by Scott Steiner as a Frankensteiner. And then the Luchadors picked it up from him. That was after hearing Eric Bischoff talk about it.
Oh, wow.
About how great Scott Steiner was for a guy of his size. That it's basically a variation of a flying head scissors. I mean, the way the flying head scissors go is you would leap up and head scissors a standing opponent, but you would do it kind of on the side. So as you twist, you take them over almost like a snapmare or something. But Steiner's variation was to hit them kind of head on. So now you're flipping them over yourself rather than, the wrestler executing the move, having his torso off to the side. Now your torso is directly in line with your feet all the way up the opponent's neck, and you're bringing them all down. So this was, if you attack from the back, then it becomes more of a spike.
Mhm.
It becomes almost like you're executing a DDT with your legs rather than your arms. And Santos Escobar does this really well, and Mustafa Ali, he takes it well. And this looks great. Santos gets a 2 count out of it. Eventually, Mustafa Ali hits a tornado DDT for a 2 count. The win at the end turns out to Phantom Driver. Santos Escobar does the Phantom Driver off the ropes. So a big high impact move, a very athletic move. You know, it's a kind of a combination luchador move, but also supposed to be a power move.
Yeah.
That's kind of what the American wrestlers who have that luchador style are trying to do. They're trying to combine power moves with the high flying stuff. And Santos Escobar, that Phantom Driver is basically it. And you know, he gets the pinfall there. Yeah.
Yeah.
No interference in this match, one-on-one match.
And Escobar got a little pop, which is good. It kind of continues the LWO thing. Is actually one of the they've been patient with the stable, because when it kind of first got introduced, these guys had like some weird other gimmick, but then
Not the LWO.
now they do like kind of a retro throwback to WCW, and it just looks good on a t-shirt. LWO.
Yep.
And it touches on like some of the old NWO stuff, and there's some lineage to it, and I think they're really doing a good job with this stable so far. Oh, and then one more thing about this match.
Yes.
Rey Mysterio, the hardest working retired guy in the WWE. He's out there. He's working as the manager. He's running around. So he's like carrying the whole LWO as their like old man leader that also does a lot of the wrestling as well. And whenever he's wrestling, he's doing all the work. So,
we mentioned the Bloodline before. That, you know, a good chance to see if these guys can hold their own without Roman there, or is everybody just getting Roman's rub? I think the LWO is still in that stage where they really need Rey Mysterio's rub.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like so they really do need to run Rey out there, even if he's not wrestling. He's got to be part of the backstage get-togethers. He's got to be maybe ringside as a manager. The LWO guys need Rey Mysterio's rub more than the Usos need Roman Reigns' rub at this point.
And this is a little off topic, but Dominic Mysterio, interestingly enough, being removed from his father is like the best thing that's ever happened to him. Which is you thought before he needed the rub.
Yes.
But then now that he's broken away and he's with Rhea Ripley, he's way
Judgment
over.
Day.
You know?
Yeah. This is more over than this is more over than he was when he was tag teaming with Rey and they won the titles at one point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is way more over than that. Yeah. So that's maybe what they have to see from these guys is, you know, is somebody here going to make that leap and get into the crowd's consciousness where you can be sort of your own wrestler, and maybe the LWO doesn't need Rey as much. Maybe Money in the Bank is that chance. Let's see how Santos Escobar does at the big pay-per-view, the big premium live event.
Right. All right. So moving on here. Any other segments or matches you wanted to talk about?
Before we get to the other 3 Money in the Bank qualifiers, which as far as I can tell spanned about 3 minutes, about 2 minutes, and about 3 minutes. So like 8 minutes between the other 3 matches combined. Right after this first qualifier, Jey Uso is backstage pacing. And who walks up but someone we haven't seen on SmackDown since the draft went through? Sami Zayn.
Oh, right.
Who, because he and Kevin Owens are the unified tag team champions, they're supposed to be every now and then on both programs because they hold the belts for both programs. Sami Zayn comes up and he's trying to talk to Jey. And again, Jey is listening patiently. And at the end, he just walks off. So Sami is so desperate for other people's approvals that he's still trying to get Jey's approval.
Right.
Like Sammy just won't let it go. Sammy is so high agreeableness, as a personality trait, his character, that he, when he sees Jay out there looking like he on his own, it's like Sammy's there. Maybe he needs a friend. Maybe I can be his friend. I should be his friend. I should go over there and talk to him like I'm his friend. Even though we've had matches on pay-per-views where we were just hating each other.
Right.
Good segment. The crowd, of course, loves seeing Sammy on camera.
Oh yeah.
Because like you're saying, he's still so over.
Mm-hmm.
Not a bad segment. It further solidifies the, are there cracks in the bloodline thing when, one of Roman's arch enemies, Sami Zayn, is, going over there and talking to Jay, who Roman's trying to bring back into the fold there. Roman's famous line from the previous episode of Smackdown, Jay will do what he always does. Fall in line. Well, will he? So this was a good segment for that. What was your favorite of the other 3 Money in the Bank qualifiers? Unless you have a backstage or other non-match in-ring segment that you like more.
Yeah, you're right. There's a bunch of small, short matches that were squashes.
Yeah.
I had like one note for each. So do you want to just turbo through them?
Yeah, we could do lightning round. Bailey with Io Sky against Michin. Bailey wins in about 3 minutes.
I wrote
with a camera botch.
Oh no.
Did you see the camera botch?
I missed this.
They're zooming in on the pinfall. Michin clearly has her right shoulder up off the mat at the count of 1. Ref keeps counting 3. It's over.
Yes. When I saw Michin was wrestling Bailey, I'm like, okay, well, this is probably no surprise. So I wrote bathroom break. This was.
I hope you went quick.
It went, right. It was a bathroom break. Yeah.
It was. I hope there's no line at the bathroom break. This was maybe a 3-minute match.
Yeah. They played the music. Bailey came out. She won. She squashes the Michin, who I've never seen wrestle before. There was like 4 moves. We flew right through it. Yep. The other one is Baron Corbin versus Butch.
Yes.
It looks like they're sending Baron Corbin down to NXT.
Yes.
I guess
he's already made appearances there, right? And
yeah, so I guess they're sending him down to show them, what not to do, because this guy at one point he won the Money in the Bank. They were pushing him, and he just sucked. He sucked in the ring. His mic work sucked. He was getting go away. The Elite from All Elite Wrestling, they do like a little, they do like a YouTube show, like a vlog, and they're bookers, and they're like making fun of like how they should book, and they don't know how to do it. And it said one was Baron Corbin heat ? Like in their notebook. So they're just like openly making fun of Baron Corbin for getting bad heat. And I agree.
He's over in 2 promotions.
He's over, right? Baron Corbin heat, which is go away heat. So he goes and gets squashed, which, hey, if he's gonna do anything, then he should get squashed. He's like the Brooklyn Brawler now, and then they're gonna send him down to NXT to teach people what not to do.
2 NXT guys at ringside for this match, like you're saying. One was, I think, Carmelo Hayes, and his tag team partner, protege, just kind of all around nice guy friend in wrestling, was also there. They get into it with Corbin post match, and then Baron Corbin interrupts the Brawlin' Brutes interview backstage right after the match, and Cameron Grimes comes in and attacks him from behind. And Cameron Grimes is now on the call up to the Big Show, but he's had been an NXT call up with this draft. So yeah, there's a lot of either recent NXT call ups or guys still in NXT, that's who's feuding with Baron Corbin. Now, is it strange that they're giving it SmackDown airtime? Is this to try and get more people watching NXT?
Yeah. I think it's cross promotion here.
Okay.
I'm not doing that. I wouldn't watch NXT. Because their NXT program is shot in almost a small studio.
Okay.
And there's maybe 100 people. It looks like 100 people, which actually which I'd be fine with, honestly. But then they have a huge screens behind all the people of fake people cheering. And it just looks horrible. And I'm like, this looks like shit. I'm not watching this.
Oh boy.
So yeah, so I'm not watching it. But yeah, this is a cross promotion here for NXT.
Okay.
So we have that.
Then I hope it's working for them, and maybe they're renewing some interest in the NXT product.
We have the lightning round though. So what's the next match?
Shotzi versus Io Sky. Io Sky, Bailey comes out with Io Sky, kind of returning the favor. Haven't seen Dakota Kai much. Maybe she's legitimately injured, or they're trying to just play up the dynamic and some of the tension between Bailey and Io. But Io Sky beats Shotzi in about 3 minutes with a top turn moonsault after Bailey pushed Shotzi off the top rope while the ref was distracted checking on Io Sky, who had feigned an injury late in the match. And I say late in the match took 3 minutes. So like 2 minutes into the match, Io Sky feigned an injury, and that allowed the interference. Shotzi, a good person that they're kind of throwing out there to get beat every now and then. She's doing the Natalya role that Natalya had been doing for months earlier, where she was the person who was legitimately known by the crowd, had enough success where if you put her out there and she's putting people over, it's not like a jobber put them over.
Yeah, no, they're asking her to kind of have a good match, and I think she has the capability to do it. And yeah, I like Shotzi, and I like her in the mid card. So, okay, so moving on here.
We went lightning round with the matches, but Bailey versus Michin, there was something at the end of it that you alluded to earlier. AJ Styles, Michin's friend there and stablemate from the OC, he comes out to do commentary, and AJ's good on the mic, so he's good on commentary. What happens post-match here?
Karrion Kross comes out with his lady. I forget her name.
Scarlett. It's Scarlett who approaches from the front in AJ's field of vision.
Yeah.
And she hits him with just powder that's in her hand.
Yeah. So the Karrion Kross gimmick continues. The confusion continues.
Yes.
Because first we said ballroom dancer.
Yes.
Then they were doing like tarot card things.
Yes. Fortune tellers. So now blowing smoke in the face, like, is that a magician? Like, are they more like magicians now? I don't know. I don't know. Is there a genie coming out of a bottle? What's going on?
What is this gimmick? What is it? They just they throw things together. They're like, it's mysterious. There's tarot.
What if you blow smoke into his face and Wade Barrett will scream that it's Scarlett's fever? Playing off of her name. And then Karrion Kross sneaks up from the first row of the audience and puts that cross jacket sleeper hold onto AJ. So despite all these little wrinkles in the gimmick, he's still doing the cross hammer and the cross jacket. So his moveset hasn't changed as far as Karrion Kross goes. Michin eventually runs over, and that's what forces Karrion Kross to break the hold, because then he's just concerned about protecting Scarlett. So now Scarlett's in the way of maybe a Michin attack. Karrion Kross breaks the hold, grabs Scarlett, pulls her over the barricade, and they escape through the crowd. Even though they're heels, and that should be like bad news for them. Like Jim Cornette would tell you, like, I'd be stabbed a dozen times if that happened to me out in Louisville,
Yeah.
But apparently heels can escape through the crowd unscathed.
in the modern day wrestling they can. I don't think in the territory era they could
No.
because everybody was nuts.
Yes.
I'll I'll tell you what. Yeah, with Karrion Kross and AJ Styles, that's pretty good. I mean, AJ Styles is great,
Yes.
and Karrion Kross has showed some promise in the ring. The gimmick's lousy and weird. It's just okay. I should say this: the gimmick's not Bray Wyatt lousy, but it's not good. You know,
They're
it's
still trying to get their footing with it, right?
yeah. We
It's
don't know.
not clicking yet.
It's not. It's not working. But whatever. So we'll look past the gimmick. The two guys can probably have a good match. So we at least have that going for us.
I'm going to ask a question there, though. We've seen Karrion Kross look really skittish on spots with some of the high flyers. And like he's been paired to work with Rey Mysterio very briefly, Santos Escobar in like fatal 4-way matches and things. He's looked kind of skittish taking some of the high flyer moves. AJ Styles, high flyer, has that moveset. I mean, he can grapple if he needs to. He's also a submission wrestler. But will Karrion Kross have to up his game here to really wrestle the kind of match that AJ Styles is capable of putting on here? Or is AJ going to have to prune down his move set in order to get the best out of Karrion Kross? I think there's some real life tension there as far as their styles and their abilities and what they've shown us so far. This is not a shoe-in to me that these guys are going to have a really good program, even though they're expected to because AJ Styles is a big name. He just wrestled for the World Heavyweight Championship.
I am going to steal an opinion of the great Jim Ross.
Okay.
And he likes matchups, different clashes of style.
Okay.
Clashes of style typically end in good matches. If they do have two different styles. So it's not like so comfy that it's too smooth. You know, sometimes stuff looks too smooth and it looks like gymnastics. With the clash of styles, you get some conflicting ways that people work, and it could make it a little bit stiffer. And in my opinion, stiffer is better. So I would say that would be my 2 cents on AJ Styles and Karrion Kross. But you're right; it is going to be a difference in styles. Styles. But
I hope they go in the direction where they kind of force Karrion Kross to grow a little as a performer.
Yeah.
I would rather see him try to, professional growth. We all do that as our jobs, I want to grow as a professional. Karrion Kross, here's a chance for him to grow as a professional. Right. Isn't it? I would rather see that than AJ working at 3/4 of what he can do because Kross can't grow.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm interested to see where this goes, and I'm hopeful that it's Karrion Kross getting better to meet AJ Styles rather than the other way around.
All right, Dom. So could you? So I missed the opener. So can you fill the people in on the opener for the night?
Okay, the opener was kind of rehashing what's been going on with the Bloodline. It's Paul Heyman, and Solo Sikoa in the ring, and very quickly, Jey Uso's music interrupts. He immediately walks to the ring, and now Paul Heyman acts like he's been expecting Jey because he's ready for him. He's got the spiel all ready for him that this is all Jimmy's fault. It's not your fault, Jey. I don't blame you. He's really going into the Paul Heyman's there to extend the olive branch here. Like he holds Solo back and says, "No, Solo, stay back." When Jey gets in the ring, and Paul comes up to him and says, I'm not a threat. Jey, I'm not a threat. He's not a threat. Look at Paul Heyman. Look at Jey Uso. Paul Heyman's not a threat. And Paul just wants to talk, and he's blaming Jimmy because Jimmy made up his own mind. And then Jimmy made up his mind for you, Jey. And then Paul tells him that Roman Reigns wants to groom Jay to be the next tribal chief. And Jimmy has known it, and Jimmy has resented it. So this is more Paul Heyman creating backstory that nobody in the audience was privy to. He's not really, this is a thing that Paul Heyman's very good at. He's not referencing actual stuff that happened either on camera or better yet in the ring that wrestling fans can go, oh yeah, I remember that. This is Paul Heyman having to plant the seed that nobody saw this, but it really happened. And it can work in doses. They tried this with the Cody Rhodes Roman Reigns build up getting to WrestleMania, where suddenly, you know, they're in this quandary where their WrestleMania main event for night 2 of WrestleMania, the biggest match of the year, is two guys who have absolutely no heat with each other. So they had to use Paul Heyman in a way to create out of thin air heat. And he's trying to do the same thing here. He's creating stuff that nobody ever saw and knew was happening, and he's trying to convince us that, oh, yes, it was happening. We just didn't know about it. And it was really happening, and Jay did not know about it. So Jay did not know that Roman wanted Jay to be the next tribal chief. Jimmy knew, and Jimmy resented it. Jimmy's never said anything about it, but Jimmy knew, and Jimmy resented it. And Roman never said anything about it, but Roman knew, and Jimmy knew that Roman knew. And maybe they even talked about it, but they didn't tell Jay. But now Paul's telling Jay. Okay. If that's what it takes to spread some possible dissension between Jay and Jimmy, all right, then that's what it takes. So Paul says, this is the plan, and as part one of the plan, step one of the plan, Jay gets a title match tonight because they want Jay to now be a champion and start off on his road as a singles competitor, and says, and I'm going to extend my hand to you. I want you to shake my hand. And Jay says, all right, I'll take the match. And he looks at Paul Heyman's hand, but I'll let you know, I'll let you know about that. Does not shake Paul Heyman's hand. And we see that play out again at the end. He walks right past Paul Heyman and Solo Sikoa at the end of the schmaz there where he lost the match to Austin Theory. Not on their side, wouldn't shake Paul Heyman's hand. So they set that up early. Yeah, Jay, it's almost like Jay is now testing everything that Paul said. Okay, if what you're saying is true, I'll go have the match. I'm not shaking your hand yet, but I'll have the match.
So
a lot to do there, and I don't think there's anybody other than Paul Heyman who can pull that off.
That leads right into my point. I can hear Paul Heyman talk about anything. He's so great. So anytime I missed the opener, so I was like kind of kicking myself because the opener was Heyman. I'm like,
yeah.
But thanks for summing that up for us. And just as far as the show's concerned, I don't have much else. There were 2 segments we could talk about. One being, this seems to be kind of a money grab for the WWE, but they're making new title belts. They're updating title belts. So the Raw Women's title is now the women's title or something.
Yep. WWE Women's Championship. It almost has to be, right? Because the Raw Women's Champion is on Smackdown.
Yeah.
So Asuka, what's she going to do? And before her, Bianca Belair. So, yeah, a new belt.
So we got a new belt. So Asuka's got a new belt. Again, bit of a money grab because they're going to make new belts and then people are going to buy the belts. And the belts are expensive. So, it's
merchandise. Okay. I hadn't thought of it. I just thought of the angle that, wow, it's really stupid to have the Raw champion on SmackDown.
Also, it's a win-win, right? They can make some money and they can have the title make a little bit more sense.
Mm-hmm.
As far as,
this was part of a very complicated pair of segments, 2 or 3 segments in a row here.
This was
right?
This was
Tell us more about this. This was oh boy, this was more than a shiny new piece of jewelry, wasn't it?
Bianca Belair says, I want a rematch to Adam Pearce. Adam Pearce says, okay, I'll give you a rematch. That's the gist of the backstage segment.
But there was a caveat there.
Oh no, there's a caveat.
Please don't interrupt tonight's proceedings. Please don't cause a scene with the new women's championship with Asuka here. And Bianca's like, Asuka got in my business. Now you're telling me I can't get in Asuka's business? And so Adam Pearce, as you're saying, throws out the rematch kind of to calm her down. Look, you're already going to get your rematch, and that seems like news to Bianca, the way she reacts. It's like, okay, well, if I'm getting my rematch, then I won't cause the disturbance tonight. And that's where they leave it. And then the next time we see Adam Pearce, he's in the ring, and Asuka walks out, and they do that. And so Bianca Belair doesn't cause a scene interrupting this, but someone else does. What happens here?
Charlotte Flair, music hits, she comes out, says, I don't have to wait in line, challenges for the title, Asuka accepts, Adam Pearce is like, okay, cool, this is the rematch here. This was a better promo than Charlotte's had in a while.
Yes.
And I'm going to say this because she had these really long-winded promos that weren't very good, and they were just too long, and she just wasn't. It's just not her skill set, which is bizarre because her father's Ric Flair, but she's a different person than Ric. So she just had a couple lines. They come out pretty well. She had a good match during WrestleMania, great match at WrestleMania, and you're happy. Just say a couple lines. We don't need a whole monologue, So she came out, says she doesn't have to wait in line. So I think she did a good job with that. So Asuka's going to she challenges Asuka. So then our next segment, Bianca Belair is yelling at Adam Pearce in the back because she now does not get her rematch.
Or if she does, is it going to be delayed? Because it looks like Charlotte Flair cut in line. You mentioned the I don't wait in line portion of Charlotte's promo there. Charlotte was good on the mic. First of all, she got a babyface pop when she came out. But then again, she got a babyface pop the last time she returned in December, January, very early in this year or late in last year. But it didn't last very long, but she gets another babyface pop. And you're right, her promo this time was not trying to get over as a babyface. It was trying to be like the arrogant, I don't care if you like me or not, I'm Charlotte Flair. So hey, if we want to make another Seinfeld reference, this was her I'm Keith Hernandez promo.
I'm Keith Hernandez.
I'm Keith Hernandez. Who does this guy think he is? I'm Keith Hernandez. Okay, this is who does she think she is? I'm Charlotte Flair. And the second half of the quote you made, she goes, because Adam Pearce is saying, hey, look, there's a long line of people waiting to get a title shot here. And Charlotte says, I don't wait in line. I made the line. So that's kind of a play on, to be the man, you've got to beat the man.
Okay.
And to beat the man, you've got to walk that aisle.
All right.
So it's, I don't wait in line. I made the line.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how Charlotte gets to cut in front of Bianca, maybe? Or are they going to go for a triple threat?
That's my thinking was maybe triple threat. We'll have to see. And then who's really weird heel face dynamics here.
Yes.
I don't know who the heel is and who the face is. And Charlotte comes out in all black, which is heel, but then the crowd's kind of cheering her a little bit because they're happy they haven't seen her in a while. She gets a pop because of that. Asuka was the heel, but she's a cool clown and people like that, so they're cheering it. And then Bianca is doing the John Cena thing where she's supposed to be the face, but the crowd's booing her because they don't like her. So
is this a case where they're throwing Charlotte Flair into this because they realize something is not quite right with the Bianca Belair Asuka dynamics? It's not working the way creative mapped it out. It doesn't look like.
yeah, but I don't know why you wouldn't just turn them both. Just turn them, like turn them into what the crowd. Asuka's going to be tough to get over as a heel because I don't know, she's just likable. There's just something about her that's likable. And Bianca,
bright colors, high flying. The WWE had the same problem with the Macho Man.
Right.
Like, he's flamboyant, the bright colors, he plays to the crowd. He's jumping off the top rope. People like seeing that.
Right.
You know, so after a while, like, people just took to the Macho Man Randy Savage and would cheer. You know, the same thing happened even earlier with Jimmy Snuka. Like, the guy's jumping off of the top of a cage. People cheer that. It's fantastic to see. It's the kind of stuff that you appreciate and that you would applaud for. You know, so Asuka is the bright colors, the flamboyant moves. She's quick in the ring. She's fascinating to watch. That's usually a babyface recipe. You know, you're right. But they don't want to do what you suggested and just like turn each of them.
Then you at least have some definitive direction for all of them. I just don't like. I don't like the gray booking, where people don't know who to cheer for and who to boo. It's like the simplest thing. Like just let them know. And then like if they're not getting over in that specific role, turn them the other way. And then if they don't get over in that specific role, then they ain't getting over as faces or heels. Then you know, then there's another conversation to be had. But
we're on the collision course for a triple threat with 3 tweeners.
3 tweeners, yeah.
It's a triple tween match.
The triple threat matches I've seen as of recent, it seems like there's been a lot. They really are pumping that triple threat up when it should just be a gimmick match, but it's like a standard almost for them now.
Yeah, right.
Gimmick. But yeah, so then there's only one more segment. We didn't talk about it, so we'll talk about it briefly here. We saw Ronda Rousey for the first time in a while.
We did.
The NXT Tag Champs, who are new,
Fire and Dawn. Yep.
Yeah, I don't know their names. I don't know anything about them. I know they have they're creepy gimmick or something or other.
Yeah, they almost that kind of like pagan witchcraft thing.
Okay, they're witches.
It sounds like the kind of thing that Karrion Kross and Scarlett ought to be doing. Maybe they'll form a stable.
Right, the witch stable.
Wait, I don't want to bury them all that quickly. But Fire and Dawn are you know the mysterious people. NXT Women's Tag Team Champions, and I guess that they want those belts back on NXT. So Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler walk down and interrupt them. And the WWE champs, this is weird. Shayna Baszler and Ronda Rousey propose a unification match for all the belts. You would think it would be the NXT champs who would propose that. What's going on there? But, you know, okay, and Fire and Dawn accept, because obviously they accept.
Well,
like, what are they going to say? No?
What's really weird.
Would you like a better title belt that's actually for the big program? Without having to wait in line or do anything?
Maybe.
No.
Okay, now I kind of get it. Because you know how I said that they're making new belts to sell merchandise? Like, so if you merge the NXT Women's Champs with the SmackDown Raw Women's Tag Team Champs, then they can work on both shows. They don't have like a lot of, I don't think they have enough tag teams really. So maybe they're just like, let's merge it, make a new belt. They could do NXT and they can do SmackDown or Raw.
Maybe that's a point I hadn't considered for the women's tag division. Yeah, because now with Liv Morgan, apparently with a legitimate injury, and her and Raquel Rodriguez having to break up what looked like it was, becoming an interesting little buddy cop movie of a tag team push there. Um, Same thing that happened, unfortunately, with their counterparts on the men's side, Ricochet and Braun Strowman. Braun Strowman apparently had a legitimate injury himself and was out of action for a while. So yeah, maybe the women's division though doesn't have enough quality tag teams um, to beef up the division both on the prime brands and on NXT. I hadn't thought of that, but maybe that is.
And then there's another thing here. Maybe USA, who has NXT, gave Vince a call and said, "Hey, we have this show on Tuesday. Nobody watches it. Nobody pays attention to it. Nobody, even the WWE fans don't watch it. Like we watch Smackdown every Friday, and I don't know anything about NXT. So they're just trying to maybe USA's like, hey, we need to get numbers up a little bit here, and you're throwing us this show that nobody watches. So maybe they're thinking, try to get some people down there that are reliable hands in the NXT program, and maybe
or at least big names, because I don't know that I would call Ronda Rousey a reliable hand.
Rousey, yeah, she would be a name, definitely not a hand. Maybe Corbin is somewhat of a hand that can go down there, and people at least know who he is. Because I mean,
Baron Corbin is the last guy to pin Roman Reigns.
This is true, which is insane.
The guy getting demoted.
Yeah, the guy that is over. Yes, he's getting squashed anytime he's on TV, and he's getting laughed at, and he's getting sent down to NXT. So yeah,
and he's being mocked on another promotion.
Yes, and he's being mocked openly, like, oh, they have him, ha ha ha. Yeah. So
maybe not enough women's tag teams, and a good call by you there. But on the other side, it looks like there are plenty of men's tag teams because there's going to be a 5-team gauntlet match on an upcoming SmackDown to see who gets to challenge Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, who do make a backstage appearance together with Adam Pearce in this one. And Kevin Owens, he's very much overwhelmed by talking and by people who don't follow the rules. That's his new gimmick. It's like, no, you can't just come in here and interrupt somebody's interview. You weren't asked to be out here. You're not following the rules. That's not the rules. And then Sammy has to calm him down. And that's when Kevin just wants to fight with people because they won't follow the rules about interviews. So it's working. The little bit of comedy that they're keeping in Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, especially since the two of them are like an old married couple.
They are.
Like they are totally an old married couple. Or if you're a fan of sports talk, they're what Tony Kornheiser and Michael Wilbon were in the original Part of the Interruption. They're an old married couple.
Yes. That's the gimmick. Old married couple, for sure.
Old married couple. Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, old married couple. It's kind of working as a comedy thing. And and when they get in the ring, they still legitimately wrestle. Like they don't wrestle comedy, but they can do the comedy backstage in promos, in interviews, in vignettes. But they wrestle tough guy. They wrestle guys who can really go.
Yep. All right, Dom. So that was SmackDown. Felt like more of a storyline thing, SmackDown.
Yes.
Wasn't too bad. Wasn't too good. Okay. One of the things I would say is it seems like maybe they kind of booked themselves too many matches or vignettes because all the matches were super short.
Yeah.
So like, it would have been nice if they like cut one of the matches and did they wrestle in NXT maybe, and then there was a qualifier in NXT or is there a qualifier just make up a dark scenario. Oh yeah, there was this qualifier and they won.
This was almost a Raw show, right? Where they have the extra hour and then a few things run too long and you go, why was that 10 minutes?
Right.
That could have been 5. Why was that 10 minutes? Oh, because of the third hour. And then they run into it on SmackDown and it's like, I know we told you guys had 5 minutes. You got 3.
You have 3. Yeah, it looks like they're in Gorilla telling them, 3 minutes. you know, and because they're flying out there during their entrances too, they're not really hamming it up. So,
Yeah.
anyways, all in all, okay though. So we're at the hour mark, and we're gonna call it our cheap heat segment here, as we're kind of doing a little cheap heat. We're going into the Italian goodbye, where we mosey on down to end, but we just kind of keep talking here.
John, you said gorilla. You said gorilla. There were rumors that Vince McMahon was backstage and in the gorilla position for WWE Raw that was originating from Hartford, which would have been this past Monday. And I don't know if the wrestlers like that.
Yeah.
What do you think about Vince? Kind of, I mean, it's in their backyard. The headquarters are in Stamford. It's an hour and a half up a few big highways to get to Hartford. So yeah, Vince is there. Like, hey guys, how you doing? So I figured I'd swing by after work, see how everybody's going.
Right.
Here you getting a workout. Hey, Oh, maybe I'll stick around. You got a show tonight. Oh, look at that! What a coincidence.
Oh, yeah, Raw.
Who's sitting there? Me? I'm sitting there. Oh, it's fantastic.
Oh, the good old days when I was in Gorilla every night for 20, 30, I don't know, 40 years, whatever it is. He's not giving up the crown. He doesn't want to ever. He'll die on the crown. And maybe he just wants Triple H to know that. So he goes and shows up at Gorilla. And if I want to tag in, then I'm going to tag in. It's my company, damn it. It's my company, damn it.
Now, the report that I got here via Wrestling Inc., who was lifting some information from Fightful, which is fairly credible, reputable wrestling reporters there at Fightful, that this apparently was not as close to the chaos as their words, the infamous Monday after WrestleMania, where Vince apparently showed up to that one on April 4th. And it was said to have sunk morale, which is too bad because WrestleMania was fantastic. And it should have been just a high point for all the wrestlers who were involved. So this is something to watch. I mean, do people kind of get used to Vince? Does Vince settle into it's like, okay, I'm there. I show my face. People know I'm in charge, but I don't screw around too much with what's going on. Or is this going to be ongoing tension where, every time they're in the Northeast, there's this muttering, sometime in the afternoon, like, is Vince going to be here? Is Vince going to be here? Is Vince going to be here? And then Vince shows up and is like, oh, is he changing stuff? Is he going to change stuff? Like he's sitting at Gorilla. Oh boy, I can't avoid him now. If I have a match or an in-ring segment, I got to walk right by the boss. And the boss might say something, be like, let's go for this kind of finish instead here. Hey, let's bring this up out there when we get out there.
Right.
I don't know if I want that. I mean, it's, I'm going to use the word. It reeks of micromanaging, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Nobody wants to be micromanaged.
Ever. That's never a thing that people want.
If you want to be micromanaged, there's a problem with you as a worker, no matter what your industry is.
Yeah.
If you're a competent professional, you want to be properly trained, but then it's like, okay, take the training wheels off. Don't helicopter me. Don't micromanage me. Vince gives off a micromanager's vibe, doesn't he?
Yeah.
It seems from the reports.
It feels a little bit like a lot of the day-to-day stuff that he's always been involved with, he's not so skilled at, but he is very skilled at the high-level strategic stuff. Like,
yes,
that's really what he's great at, is like, let's do WrestleMania and bring in celebrities. Let's try to, I mean, he took over the entire wrestling industry. Like, he knocked out all the territories because of the high-level strategic ability he has. But that ground-level operational person who you have to be in the pit with all the time, it doesn't seem like people are all that happy when he's around. And that could just be like, he's a mess to deal with day to day. He's emotional. He's pissed off. He doesn't sleep enough. He's, like, he's a guy, he sleeps 5 hours a day or 4 hours a day or whatever it is, or he doesn't sleep. And then he's all cranky and crazy because he's doing so much at once. And being around that, it can be quite hectic. And it's interesting because a lot of these wrestlers have never really worked in any other field, so they don't even know what's normal and what isn't, right?
Right?
So
Yeah.
they don't know, like, oh yeah, you shouldn't be dealing with this. Like if you worked a normal job, you wouldn't be dealing with something like this, or you shouldn't, but you kind of got to deal with it when you're
The stuff you mentioned that Vince is good on, that doesn't sound like micromanaging to me.
no.
That sounds like big picture strategy.
Mhm.
But what you described is, the guy who's way up the company hierarchy, who then, without really being there day to day, shows up and starts.
Ripping up the creative and rewriting Raw. Like
Right
what?
now, he's micromanaging. He's coming from on high, descending and jumping headfirst into, like, what did I miss? Well, let's do it my way.
Yeah, he's auditing and removing stuff, but that's the Vince stuff. I want to go into some other cheap heat here.
We could talk about another micromanager, Tony Khan. We've already brought up AEW.
Yeah, sure. Do you want to? I was gonna. Yeah, let's do Tony Khan. Go ahead.
Here's another rumor going around. I saw this WrestleZone. The WWE is preventing AEW from running events in the same arena within a certain period of time. Like, if you want our program, then you got to make sure there's no other wrestling in this venue for maybe 2 months, 3 months, whatever it is. This is famously what, and I don't know if this is true. It could be just a rumor, but it's the kind of rumor that has some credibility behind it because we know WWE did this years ago. This was famously what Vince did about pay-per-views, where he told cable carriers for pay-per-views that if you want access to WrestleMania, then you can't carry this NWA pay-per-view. Like, I don't want you carrying this. Pay-per-views that were too close together or even the same weekends. Like, if you want our stuff, you can't carry theirs. And he made people pick a side. And so if this is actually happening again when it comes to live venues and live shows in arenas, it reeks of WWE, and maybe they have the reputation and the business where they're doing good enough business for arenas where they can throw their weight around and get the favorable answer they want. I mean, the show in Hartford where Vince was at, apparently that set records for that arena. So it was a very lucrative show for that Hartford venue. Maybe the WWE is in a position to throw its weight around here and prevent AEW from getting some of the same big venues, and maybe forcing AEW to choose, if they want to be in that market, a lesser venue, a lesser known venue, a venue with not as much capacity, so they won't get the live gate that they would for a sellout.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think the only thing with WWE versus AEW and WWE versus the NWA is Tony Khan has more money than Vince. So if Vince tries to throw his weight around and do all this stuff, there is going to be an element of, if they go toe to toe here, Tony Khan blows Vince's net worth out of the water by like 6 times. They own an NFL team. They own an NFL team and a Premier League team. I don't even know how much the Premier League team is in soccer or football, European football. But Jacksonville Jaguars are way more valuable than the WWE. I know that sounds crazy, but they're probably around $6 billion. The NFL is king, and they have an NFL team. So
yeah, NFL and Premier League. Premier League may even be more than the NFL property, considering how big Premier League is over in Europe.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Khans have plenty. So maybe it's the kind of thing where Tony Khan says, all right, I'll run a lesser arena and just do the TV, have a packed house of rabid fans who were really clamoring for the show. And maybe we don't need to be, we'll still do the market. Like, you can't keep us out of the market. Maybe you can keep us out of a particular venue, but you can't keep us out of the market. We'll find another place to go. So it's real business competition here between WWE and AEW.
Yeah. So I mean, ultimately, you look at it, and uh, that's the huge thing that's different. Like, I think a lot of people sometimes compare AEW to TNA. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
TNA never had nearly the funding that AEW could potentially have. So
Yep.
that's the only difference really between the two. Is TNA, it had some old guys, and it had maybe good storylines and whatever it was, but it never had a shot because WWE just had way more money, and
Mm-hmm.
that's not necessarily the case with AEW. So okay, so moving on here, I think this is probably the biggest GP we have.
Okay.
The Iron Sheik passed away this
Yes.
week. So thoughts, of course, to his family, and a great pro wrestler, a great actual wrestler,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, really kind of an icon. Now that I'm
Icon.
thinking about it, I mean, he really is an icon. He had a great, amateur wrestling career in the Middle East. I think from Iran,
Yes.
and moved on and jumped into pro wrestling and did the job for Hulk Hogan to get him going, and was
Mm-hmm.
the big heel that took the belt. I mean, you figure he took it from Bob Backlund to the Iron Sheik to Hulk Hogan. Those are three guys that are like these guys are all three of them are huge pro wrestlers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so then eventually, as Iron Sheik gets older, he gets like a little bit sillier. The gimmick gets sillier as time goes on. And then later in his life, he becomes like an expert on how to work the internet. And
Sure.
his Twitter and his tweets are like hilarious. He's talking about
Yes.
breaking people's legs. He's doing shoot promos completely wasted. And he's doing like some real wacky stuff on Howard Stern. So he completely reinvents himself on the internet, and then brings it all together kind of like in the later stage of his career when he kind of cleans himself up, and he's got documentaries on Netflix about him, and he's got
Mm-hmm.
these different you know people paying tribute to him. So I think he's a guy that did it all.
Mm-hmm.
He really has a fascinating life, like in pro wrestling and then outside of pro wrestling as well. So yeah, that's my piece on the Iron Sheik. What did you have to say about him?
The Iron Sheik in later life with the Twitter stuff. I mean, that stuff is easy to imitate. Anybody who can write in broken English with a broken caps lock key as well can and some profanity can parody what the Iron Sheik Twitter account became. But as a wrestler, you brought up the transition Bob Backlund to the Iron Sheik to Hulk Hogan. Iron Sheik's amateur background as an Olympic wrestler for Iran, his home country, played a big part in that. Bob Backlund was a long time. He's one of the few 1,000-day reign champions that the WWE had. Hulk Hogan's coming to WWE, and Vince has to put the belt on him. But Bob Backlund is the champion. Bob Backlund's another real legitimate amateur wrestler star. Bob Backlund, as the story goes, is not real keen on dropping the belt to Hulk Hogan, who's just a bodybuilder.
Mm-hmm.
He does not want to do that. So now they're trying to figure out a way. First of all, that would be babyface on babyface. Not the best of things, especially in that era of WWE. And Backlund's not really interested in putting over a guy who's not a real wrestler. So they got to find a way to bridge this. And the Iron Sheik becomes the perfect piece for that puzzle. Bob Backlund is willing to lose to the Iron Sheik because he knows, like, okay, yeah, he's a real wrestler. He can grapple. He's good in this hand-to-hand combat stuff. So Backlund will put him over, famously does. The Sheik is also clearly a heel, which he had started up earlier, doing that whole, the It's the trope. The foreign guy from the playing off of global politics, the guy from Iran is the heel. And so he is a transitional champion, passing the belt to Hulk Hogan very quickly to get Hogan the big pop, beating the heel. The Iron Sheik's got to be the greatest and best known and most celebrated transitional champion in wrestling history. Like, they didn't put the belt on him because they wanted him to have a run with the title belt. They put the belt on him because they had to get it from one guy to another guy. He was the third wheel. He's the best known, most successful transitional champion in history. And I say recreating sort of his global politics heel persona because he was doing this Iranian guy stuff years earlier. I don't know if our viewers remember the Iran hostage crisis.
Hey, Dom. Give me 1 sec here. So you have been skipping out. Let me just add you, put you back in. Can you try talking now?
Yes.
Say testing. You give me a
test.
All right, you're back.
I'm back. Okay, I was skipping out. So the Iron Sheik, the greatest transitional champion in wrestling history. Like, no one who wasn't ever really supposed to have a run with the belt, who was just there to get it from one guy to another guy. Nobody's been as successful as the Iron Sheik at that. And he does it by bringing back or continuing a gimmick of his, playing off of global politics that was really successful years earlier. I don't know how many of our listeners or viewers here remember the Iran hostage crisis of late 79 and 1980. The Iranian government had detained some Americans there, and it stretched for hundreds of days, more than a year. The NWA picks up on this. And in 1980, spring of 1980, they don't put the NWA world title on the Iron Sheik. They put another belt that was very well respected at the time, the NWA Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Championship, on the Iron Sheik. He runs with it for a little more than half a year, the height of the Iran hostage crisis. And he's getting crazy heat in arenas. Finally, on November 1st, 1980, perfect timing, mere days before the presidential election, where, as it turns out, Ronald Reagan beats the incumbent Jimmy Carter, and that's really the beginning of the end of the Iran hostage crisis. It ends the day that Reagan's inaugurated in January. So mere days before that election, the Iron Sheik wrestles his real-life student, Ricky Steamboat, in a great match in Richmond, Virginia. They bill Ricky Steamboat as like Mr. USA or something. Steamboat winds up taking the belt from the Iron Sheik at the perfect time to a crazy pop. So the Iron Sheik had done this before, playing off the Iranian gimmick, leaning hard into global politics, being the heel, title belt involved, putting on somebody else. And also in that case, being willing to put over, like, the Iron Sheik was so proud of Ricky Steamboat in that moment, that here he is, the vehicle by which Ricky Steamboat gets his first NWA Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Championship, as Ricky Steamboat's an up-and-coming guy. So, yeah, it brings together everything that we celebrate the Iron Sheik for. Being legitimately a great wrestler from Iran, an Olympic-level wrestler, being a guy who would train other wrestlers, a great in-ring worker who would lean into his gimmick and not be ashamed of it and play it up for the American crowd that really hated him at the time, being willing to put over other guys for title belts, and then somehow remaining strong even though he does that. So, I mean, the Iron Sheik allows the WWE to get out of the Bob Backlund title belt. He's the perfect guy to put over Hulk Hogan. He makes Ricky Steamboat years earlier in the NWA after training Ricky Steamboat. You don't think of a high flyer like Ricky Steamboat as a guy who will be trained by a legit Olympic wrestler. But yeah, Ricky Steamboat could grapple, he could mat wrestle. And that comes from training with the Iron Sheik. Man, what a guy who's done so much behind the scenes and in front of the camera and in the ring. Yeah, prayers and good thoughts to the family of the Iron Sheik, um, who who is who was hated at a time when maybe people didn't appreciate what these guys were doing as much. But now that everybody does, it was great to see the Iron Sheik become a star, a real beloved figure years afterward.
And Doc, I'll have to say I couldn't put it any better myself. I did not know about that Iran hostage situation.
Yep.
So yes, that is going to be a short video we'll have coming out here. Very interesting stuff.
Yep.
And at the hour and 20-minute mark, I'm going to go ahead and say, let's make this from the Italian goodbye to a bit more of the Irish style goodbye
I think we're done. We've talked about a lot today, and we had a ton of cheap heat here. So do you have anything else that you want to mention?
No, no other things to mention. If you hung in here for the whole time, we appreciate it. Saw a couple people popping in and out, but not as much volume as usual. It's a Sunday. It's nice out. Understandable.
Catch us on Twitch, on YouTube, and on Facebook Live. Leave comments for it. Catch shorts on, what is it? We're on the TikTok.
We are on the TikTok.
TikTok and YouTube shorts. Maybe some of those making their way over to Facebook at some point. Smaller videos that we edit also on YouTube as well. So find us on your favorite platforms or on more than one of them.
Yeah, our home base is kind of YouTube. But if you're more comfortable with Facebook Live, people apparently do that, which is wild because a lot of people come on our channel from Facebook Live, and I have no idea.
Yeah.
And then Twitch is, we're hitting the kids there with the video game live streaming. And speaking of also hitting the kids is TikTok. And we're YouTubing, which I think everybody kind of is on YouTube at this point.
Hey, you whippersnappers, leave us a comment. What video game character do John and I remind you of? Let us know. Let us know if we were in a video game, what characters would we be?
What would we be? Huh? Yeah. What video character are we? On your cell phone that you're on all day. All right. Cool. So thank you so much for joining, Dom. I appreciate it. This was a good one. Everyone, have a great rest of your day. And like and subscribe. Thank you so much.